For months, Elon Musk stayed unusually quiet about Bitcoin. No crazy tweets, no massive predictions, no Dogecoin memes shaking the market. And then suddenly, reports surfaced that SpaceX may now be sitting on nearly $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. Within hours, crypto traders started connecting dots. Wheels began moving. XRP exploded. Bitcoin volatility returned. And some analysts are now warning this could be the beginning of another Elon-fueled crypto supercycle. But here's the part almost nobody noticed. Right before the frenzy started, Elon made a move so subtle, most people completely missed it. And here's the thing that most people completely glossed over when the headlines dropped on May 20th, 2026. That Bitcoin stash, it was sitting there untouched since at least the end of 2024. SpaceX did not buy during the last dip. SpaceX did not panic sell when prices fell. SpaceX simply held, quietly, patiently. While the rest of the world was watching Elon Musk on X and trying to read signals from his memes, the signal was never on X. The signal was in the balance sheet, and it just became public. So today, on the Wealth Continuum, we are pulling apart this story layer by layer. The IPO filing that revealed everything, the capital rotation that institutional traders started making before most people even read the headline, the XRP anomaly that has analysts genuinely confused, the government legislation moving through Congress right now that barely anyone is talking about, and the one scenario, the uncomfortable one, that nobody in crypto media wants to say out loud. Stay with me through this entire video, because the piece that changes how you think about everything, it comes about 12 minutes in. And if you leave before then, you will genuinely miss it. Before we go any further, if you're watching the Wealth Continuum for the first time, drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from, what time it is, and whether it is morning or night where you are. I want to know what part of the world is watching this story unfold. The comments on this channel are some of the sharpest I have seen anywhere. So let's build on that today. Let's go back to a moment that almost everyone in crypto misread. In 2021, SpaceX added Bitcoin to its balance sheet. We know that now, but at the time, nobody outside that company had any idea. There was no press release, no Michael Saylor-style Twitter announcement, no headline about rockets and digital gold. Just a quiet, deliberate allocation that cost them roughly $661 million at an average purchase price of approximately $35,300 per coin. Think about that average price for a second. In 2021, $35,000 per Bitcoin felt like an aggressive bet. Critics said it was reckless. Crypto bears called it corporate ego, and for a while, with the crash of 2022 and the long winter that followed, it looked like those critics had a point. But SpaceX never sold. And while Tesla was selling 75% of its Bitcoin in 2022 under liquidity pressure, SpaceX held every single coin. While the broader market was in free fall, while FTX collapsed, while regulation threatened to choke the entire industry, SpaceX held. And now, on May 22nd, 2026, with Bitcoin trading near $77,000, that $661 million investment is worth approximately $1.45 billion. SpaceX more than doubled its money, in silence, while the world was distracted. Now here's the question you need to sit with for a moment. If they held through all of that, through the crash, through the winter, through the regulatory fog, what does it tell you about where they think Bitcoin is going from here? Do they believe $77,000 is the ceiling? Or do they believe they are still early? Comment below. I genuinely want to know what you think the answer is, because that answer shapes everything else we are about to discuss. But here is what they are not telling you in the mainstream financial press. SpaceX is not just a tech company sitting on Bitcoin. SpaceX is preparing to go public, and that changes the entire calculus of this story. On May 20th, 2026, just 48 hours ago from the moment this video was recorded, SpaceX filed a Form S-1 registration statement with the Securities and Exchange Commission in preparation for a June IPO on the NASDAQ. The filing was a bombshell for multiple reasons. The first bombshell was the Bitcoin disclosure itself, 18,712 Bitcoin, $1.45 billion at current prices, acquired at an average cost of $35,320 per coin, held through third-party custodians, unchanged since the end of 2024. This was the first audited, publicly confirmed number we had ever seen from SpaceX. On-chain analytics firms like Arkham Intelligence had only been able to track roughly 8,285 Bitcoin through wallet addresses. The real number was more than double that. The gap tells you something important. It tells you that SpaceX was deliberately keeping this position private, held through custodians rather than traceable on-chain wallets. They did not want the market to see this, and the moment they were legally required to disclose it, the moment transparency became mandatory, the number stunned even the most plugged-in analysts. Stay with me, because the second bombshell from that filing is the one most people have completely missed. SpaceX is targeting a valuation of approximately $800 billion for this IPO. $800 billion. That would make it the most valuable private company ever to list on a public exchange. And if that IPO lands in June, it will bring institutional attention to SpaceX's balance sheet at a scale we have never seen before. That balance sheet includes $1.45 billion in Bitcoin. When fund managers, pension funds, and institutional allocators look at SpaceX's financials before deciding whether to buy this IPO, they will see Bitcoin listed as a core treasury asset. Not a speculation, not a side bet. A treasury asset held by one of the most credible companies on Earth. Ask yourself this: what happens to the credibility of Bitcoin as a corporate reserve asset when the most anticipated IPO of 2026 lists it right next to cash and government securities on its balance sheet? Hit like on this video if that question just made you pause for a second, because it should. Now add one more layer to this. Tesla, Elon Musk's other major company, still holds 11,509 Bitcoin as of its Q1 2026 disclosure. And MicroStrategy, now rebranded as Strategy, is sitting on 843,738 Bitcoin as of May 18th, 2026, nearly 4% of Bitcoin's entire fixed supply of 21 million coins. If you were to combine just SpaceX and Tesla's holdings, you would have 30,221 Bitcoin. That would rank the combined Musk empire 5th on the Bitcoin corporate treasury leaderboard. One man, 5 positions on a leaderboard. And he hasn't sent a single tweet about it. That is either genius or it's a setup. Here is what was supposed to happen after the SpaceX filing dropped. Bitcoin was supposed to pump. That is what the playbook says. Corporate treasury disclosure plus Elon Musk's name plus $1.45 billion in holdings equals green candles and euphoria. But that is not what happened. Instead, Bitcoin on May 22nd is hovering around $77,000, actually down from where it was trading 2 weeks ago. And in the past week alone, investors have pulled nearly $1 billion out of US spot Bitcoin ETF products. Let that sink in. The largest corporate Bitcoin disclosure in recent memory hit the market, and institutional money started flowing out. On May 18th alone, spot Bitcoin ETFs recorded $648 million in single-day net outflows. BlackRock's iShares. Bitcoin Trust lost $448 million in a single session. That was the third largest daily outflow of all of 2026. So what is actually happening here? This is where it gets really interesting, and really concerning if you own Bitcoin right now. The smart money is not behaving the way retail investors expected. Institutional traders are not buying the SpaceX headline. They are doing something far more strategic. And if you miss this pattern, you are going to misread every market move over the next 30 to 60 days. They are rotating, not out of crypto, into different crypto. XRP linked investment products attracted approximately $42 million in net inflows just this week, even as Bitcoin ETFs bled over $1 billion and $400 million across the same period. XRP ETFs had their best week of the entire year of 2026. A single day, May 14th, saw $18.5 million flow into XRP products alone. Solana ETFs pulled in $58 million last week, while Ethereum had 0 positive inflow days across the entire 5-day tracking period and recorded $65 million in net losses. The divergence is absolute. The question is what it means. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city and country in the comments. I want to see how global this conversation is getting, because what we're discussing is not a local market story. This is playing out across every time zone simultaneously. Let's talk about XRP for a moment, because the data coming out of the past week is genuinely strange, and the mainstream crypto conversation is almost completely ignoring it. XRP is sitting near $1.37 as of this morning. It is down roughly 5% over the past week, and yet money is flowing into it. On-chain data shows a sharp spike of approximately 4,300 new XRP wallets created in a single day this week. 4,300 new wallets in one day. That is not organic retail activity driven by excitement about a price surge. That is people positioning in advance of something. The question is, in advance of what? There are 3 competing theories circulating among analysts right now, and all 3 are worth understanding before you make any decision about your portfolio. Theory number 1, the Clarity Act. U.S. Congress is currently moving forward with significant crypto market structure legislation. If the Clarity Act passes in anything close to its current form, it could unlock somewhere between $4 billion and $8 billion in new institutional inflows, specifically into XRP-linked products. That is a regulatory catalyst of enormous scale, and smart money typically positions before the public narrative catches up. Theory number 2, JP Morgan settlement infrastructure. Reports have been circulating about JP Morgan using RippleNet infrastructure for institutional settlement. If that relationship formalizes and becomes public, XRP's institutional credibility jumps to a completely different level. Again, smart money moves first. Theory number 3. It is just the oldest trick in the cycle playbook. Bitcoin dominance fades, capital rotates into altcoins. Altcoins give leveraged upside as the cycle matures. This has happened in 2017, 2021, and some analysts believe it is beginning again right now. You need to understand this before I show you what is next, because the government angle to this story is the one that connects all 3 of these theories in a way that most crypto commentators are refusing to talk about directly. Subscribe to the Wealth Continuum right now if you want, the kind of analysis that connects macro, regulation, and market structure in a way that actually helps you think clearly, rather than just chasing headlines. While the SpaceX Bitcoin headline was consuming the crypto internet, while traders were arguing about what Elon Musk's balance sheet means for the price, something was happening in Washington, D.C. that deserves your full attention. U.S. lawmakers are moving forward with crypto market structure legislation at a pace we have not seen before. The Clarity Act, currently working its way through Congress, would for the first time create a legal framework distinguishing between digital commodities and digital securities. It would define which cryptocurrencies fall under the Commodity Futures Trading Commission's jurisdiction and which fall under the Securities and Exchange Commission's. For Bitcoin, classified as a commodity, this legislation would be enormously clarifying. No ambiguity, no lawsuit risk, no threat of the SEC suddenly deciding to treat Bitcoin as an unregistered security. For XRP, which spent years in an existential legal battle with the SEC, this legislation would essentially be the final chapter of a long, expensive war. XRP wins. Clarity arrives. Institutional gates open. And here is what is fascinating about the timing. The Clarity Act discussions are accelerating at exactly the same moment that SpaceX is going public with a Bitcoin position on its balance sheet. XRP is quietly attracting the largest weekly institutional inflows of 2026, and Bitcoin ETFs are bleeding. Major players do not move after public narratives form. They move before. And right now, across multiple data points, capital is being repositioned in ways that suggest certain institutions believe regulatory clarity is coming, and sooner than most retail investors expect. But here is what they are not telling you, and this is the uncomfortable part. Regulatory clarity is not automatically bullish for everyone. When the rules are defined, the Wild West ends. Certain tokens that have been thriving in the gray zone will find themselves on the wrong side of the new boundary. Projects that relied on regulatory ambiguity as a competitive advantage will face an entirely new set of problems. The legislation that could unlock billions for XRP and Bitcoin might simultaneously strangle dozens of other projects that have been quietly building their market caps in the shadows. This is where fortunes are both created and destroyed in the same news cycle. And you need to decide, right now, before the narrative fully forms, which side of that line your portfolio sits on. Hit like if that question is making you genuinely rethink something. Let's come back to Elon Musk, because this story cannot be fully understood without sitting inside his decision-making for a moment. He is the CEO of SpaceX, the company that just disclosed $1.45 billion in Bitcoin in an IPO filing. He is the CEO of Tesla, which still holds 11,509 Bitcoin and never fully recovered its original position after selling in 2022. He owns X, formerly Twitter, which launched X Payments and has been quietly building financial infrastructure into the platform for months. He personally holds Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin. That is his confirmed personal portfolio. And crucially, in 2025, his political vehicle, the America Party, publicly took a pro-Bitcoin stance, adding an entirely new dimension to his crypto involvement. This is no longer just a business bet, it is a political position. So what is Elon Musk actually doing in crypto in 2026? The answer, based on the available evidence, is something more disciplined than most people give him credit for. He's not tweeting Bitcoin prices. He's not doing the pump the market social media theater that defined 2021. Instead, he's letting the financial disclosures do the talking. The SpaceX IPO filing is not a tweet. It is a legally binding document filed with the most powerful financial regulator in the United States. That is a different kind of signal, and it carries a different kind of weight. Some analysts believe Elon is preparing the groundwork for something bigger, a convergence between X Payments, SpaceX's publicly listed balance sheet, and the broader Bitcoin narrative. If X Payments eventually supports native Bitcoin transactions at scale, the user base of the platform becomes a potential on-ramp of extraordinary size. This is not confirmed. This is not a prediction. This is a pattern of moves that, when you lay them side by side, tells a very specific story about where one of the most powerful operators in the world thinks this is going. Now here is the question I want you to think about carefully. If you were Elon Musk, if you had this balance sheet, this platform, this political positioning, and this regulatory tailwind, what would your next move be? Comment below, I am genuinely asking. The smartest analysis in the comments of this channel consistently outperforms what I see on crypto Twitter. What time is it where you are right now? Drop your time zone in the comments. I want to see how many countries are in this conversation. Before we close, I owe you the version of this story that no one wants to tell. Everything we have discussed today, the SpaceX disclosure, the XRP rotation, the regulatory momentum, the Musk empire positioning, it all makes a compelling bull case for crypto over the next 12 to 18 months. But here's the scenario that deserves equal airtime. Bitcoin is currently sitting near $77,000. It is down approximately $32,000 from where it traded 1 year ago. Spot. Bitcoin ETFs have recorded over $1 billion in net outflows in just the past week. BlackRock's fund, the most important institutional Bitcoin vehicle in existence, posted its third largest single-day outflow of the entire year of 2026 just 4 days ago. The fear and greed signals are pointing in two directions simultaneously, which is exactly the kind of market environment where retail investors get destroyed. Here is what that destruction looks like in practice. A headline drops that appears unambiguously bullish. Retail investors rush in, buying the narrative. Institutional players who were already positioned use that retail buying pressure to exit their positions at favorable prices. The price reverses sharply. Retail investors are left holding bags while institutional capital quietly repositions elsewhere. This is not conspiracy theory. This is the documented playbook of every major market cycle in crypto history. It happened in 2017. It happened in 2021. It happened in portions of 2023 and 2024. The SpaceX IPO filing could be the catalyst for exactly this kind of move, in either direction. If the June IPO attracts massive institutional attention, and Bitcoin is prominently featured as a treasury asset, the credibility narrative could accelerate dramatically. New institutional allocators could decide that if a company worth $800 billion holds Bitcoin, they need exposure too. That is a genuine bull case. But here's the other side. SpaceX's IPO disclosure also raises a question that nobody in the bull camp wants to answer. What happens to the Bitcoin price if SpaceX needs to sell those 18,712 coins after listing to satisfy shareholder returns, fund operations, or manage their balance sheet? That is $1.45 billion worth of sell pressure that did not exist in the market yesterday. Share this video with someone who needs to see both sides of this story, not just the version that confirms what they already believe, the full picture. Let me bring this together for you. On May 20th, 2026, SpaceX filed for its NASDAQ IPO and disclosed 18,712 Bitcoin, a position worth approximately $1.45 billion, held at an average cost of $35,320 per coin, unchanged since the end of 2024. This single document confirmed that one of the most powerful private companies in American history quietly bet on Bitcoin during the depths of the last bear market and never flinched. At the same time, institutional money is rotating out of Bitcoin ETFs at pace, nearly $1 billion last week alone, while quietly flowing into XRP and Solana products at the highest weekly rates of the entire year. Regulatory legislation in Washington is accelerating in ways that could permanently reshape which assets win and which get left behind. And Elon Musk, through SpaceX, Tesla, X, and his personal holdings, is more exposed to crypto in 2026 than he has ever been in his life, just less loudly than before. The question is not whether this story matters. It clearly does. The question is, what does it mean for you? Does the SpaceX disclosure make you more confident that Bitcoin is a generational store of value? Or does the institutional self-pressure, the regulatory uncertainty, and the IPO unlock risk make you more cautious right now? There is no single correct answer to that. Anyone who tells you there is, on any channel, in any newsletter, on any platform, is selling you certainty they do not have. What the wealth continuum can give you is the full picture, the data, the context, the uncomfortable questions, alongside the compelling opportunities, and a community sharp enough to actually debate these things, rather than just chase hype. So here is what I need from you before you leave. First, comment below with your honest take. Is this SpaceX disclosure genuinely bullish for Bitcoin long term, or is it a one-time corporate disclosure that the market will absorb and move past? I want to read every response. Second, tell me whether you would want a full deep dive video specifically on the mechanics of the SpaceX IPO and what it means for crypto market structure. If enough of you ask for it, that video gets made this week. Third, if this analysis gave you something to think about that you were not thinking about before you pressed play, share it with one person in your circle who follows crypto. Not because we need the views, but because that person deserves to have both sides of this story before they make a decision. And if you're not already subscribed to the Wealth Continuum, this is what we do here. Every video, every week. We find the story underneath the headline, we build the context that the algorithm-chasing channels skip over, and we do it in a way that respects your intelligence and your time. The next major development in this story is probably less than a week away. SpaceX's June IPO timeline is moving fast, and the market is going to react to it in ways that most people will not see coming. Subscribe so you are not one of those people. I'll see you in the next one. The Wealth Continuum, building wealth with context, not just headlines.